The guy knew my name before I ever gave it. That's what still makes my skin crawl. Midnight blizzard, whole airport shut down in waves. Screens kept flipping from delayed to canceled like the system was stuttering. People packed the customer service line, shouting the same questions like volume would change physics. I've been awake since before dawn, sprinting between gates, refreshing the app, watching the board go red. They stopped pretending flights were coming back that night. A supervisor with a headset herded anyone without a hotel into one section, like we were luggage they couldn't store. One dim gate, metal chairs bolted in rows, thin foil blankets stacked in a sad pile. The rest of the terminal got darker as shutters came down. The only steady light was the TV playing silent news and the vending machines glowing. Vet boats, cold fries, that sharp airport cleaner smell that sticks in your nose. I curled around my backpack and tried to sleep sitting up. I kept it looped around my ankle because I don't trust tired crowds. People sprawled on the floor, faces covered. A baby cried on and off. Every 20 minutes, an employee walked by and said, "We'll update you soon," without looking anyone in the eye. He sat 2 rows away at first. Business casual, nice shoes, clean jacket, hair done. No lagi. Not even a tote. That jumped out because even that I pack light, people cling to something. He didn't. He just watched. When I shifted my legs and the blanket slid, he looked up and smiled like we had a private joke. "Rough night. My name," he said soft. My stomach dropped. My boarding pass was shoved down in my bag. I hadn't talked to him. I hadn't said my name to anyone at that gate. My brain tried to protect me anyway. Maybe he heard an agent say it. Maybe I said it louder than I thought, but he'd said it like he knew me. I forced a laugh because it was either that or freeze. I asked if he'd been on my flight, like that would make it normal. "No," he said. "I just read fast." I checked my bag handle with my fingers. Sure enough, that stupid little airline sticker was still there, half peeled, my name printed in tiny block letters. He could have read it. The excuse made sense. The feeling didn't. Who reads a stranger's name tag from across a dark gate at midnight and then uses it? It wasn't friendly. It was a hook. After that, I kept catching him looking over, and every time I looked up, he was already watching. Not my face. My legs, my hands, my phone when it lit. Like he was tracking what I had, what I could lose, how tired I was. I tried to turn my body away. I stared at the TV captions like it mattered. I kept thinking, if I make eye contact, he'll take it as permission. If I don't, he'll move closer. Around 3 a.m., they turned more lights off. Not all of them, just enough to make everything feel unfinished and unsafe. The gate area got quieter in that gross way, with random snoring and the squeak of shoes on tile. I dozed sitting up, chin dropping, waking myself up over and over. My phone was dying. I kept it in my palm like a tiny weapon. When I jerked awake, he was in the chair directly across from me. I hadn't heard him move. No scrap, no footsteps. He was just there, close enough that I could smell clean laundry and faint cologne. My blanket had slipped, so only half my legs were covered. His eyes were there, on the uncovered part, like he'd been waiting for that exact moment. Then he lifted his gaze to my face like he remembered he should. I yanked the blanket up. My throat went tight. I looked around for anyone awake enough to notice. A few people were half sitting, all dead-eyed, clutching their own bags. Nobody was looking at us. You can sit in a crowd and still be alone. He leaned forward a little. He offered to watch my things if I wanted to find a quieter spot. Said there were corners nobody used down by the closed food court. He said it like a tip, like he was doing me a favor, like he'd already picked the corner. My whole body screamed no. I pictured following him into some dark corridor, away from the only witnesses I had, and it made my skin go hot under the cold air. I pictured coming back and my bag being gone and him acting confused. Or worse, not coming back at all. I told him I'd rather freeze in public. I didn't say it cute. I said it hard. His face went blank. Not angry, not surprised. Empty, like the mask slipped and there was nothing under it. He muttered, "Suit yourself," stood up, and walked off slow, weaving through sleeping bodies like he belonged there. I sat there with my heart hammering, pissed at myself for shaking. I tried to talk myself down, name tag, coincidence, exhaustion, but I couldn't get past the way he'd moved without sound and the way he'd looked at my legs first. I didn't sleep again, not really. I did that miserable half doze where you wake up every time someone breathes. Morning showed up in pieces. The lights got brighter, the news volume came back, and people unfolded from the floor like they'd been dumped out of a bag. Everyone smelled like stale breath and damp clothes. Agents arrived with dead smiles and handed out vouchers like crumbs. A man screamed at a customer service rep until security walked him away. I finally let myself believe the guy was gone. Then I saw him again near a different gate. Same clothes, same calm, like he hadn't slept at all. He wasn't checking a board. He wasn't in line. He hovered behind a girl. She couldn't be more than 16. Hoodie up, earbuds in, head tilted like she'd been nodding off. Small suitcase, little stuffed thing clipped to the handle. He stood just behind her shoulder, close enough that if she stood up he could steer her without even touching her. He kept glancing around like he was waiting for the moment nobody was paying attention. I walked straight to a gate agent at the nearest desk. My voice came out thin and too fast. I told her there was a guy with no luggage who'd been hanging around all night. I told her he knew my name. I told her he tried to get me to go to a quiet corner. I heard myself and wanted to apologize for sounding crazy, but I didn't. I just kept talking until I ran out of breath. She followed my pointing finger and her posture changed. She swore she'd keep an eye out, picked up the phone, and spoke low into it. She told me to stay near the desk. I did, hovering like a ghost. He noticed anyway. He lifted his head and scanned, and his eyes landed on me across the concourse like I'd lit up. No smile this time, just flat recognition. A security guy in a yellow jacket started walking over, not running, not dramatic. The guy with no bag shifted and drifted into the moving crowd, using other people like cover. By the time security reached the spot, he was gone. Like it was practice. The girl blinked awake and looked around, confused. The agent moved her closer to the desk and kept her there. I watched the girl's hands shake when she adjusted her earbuds, and it made me feel sick. I kept thinking, if I hadn't looked up at the right time, would she have followed him somewhere? Would anyone have noticed? Would anyone have believed her after? The security officer took my description like it was paperwork, which it was. Average height, neat hair, clean jacket, Tan's juice, no lagi. I told him the thing that mattered. He uses your name like a hook. The officer asked if the man touched me, threatened me, did anything overt. He said that word, overt, like the quiet stuff doesn't count until it turns into something you can photograph. I said no, and his face softened like that meant I was safe. When my rebooked flight finally boarded, the storm had eased and the airport had that post-disaster vibe where people joke because they survived a stupid inconvenience. I sat on the plane gripping the armrest, watching every man who walked down the aisle, waiting for that calm face to slide into my row. I didn't relax until we were in the air, and even then I kept feeling like I'd left something unfinished on the ground. A month later, a thread popped up in a travel group when I couldn't sleep. Anyone else get weird vibes from a guy at that airport who keeps waking up solo women at night? Different usernames, same description. Novak, knows your name. The comments turned into the usual fight. People calling it paranoia. People saying, well, why didn't you report? People acting like women invent fear for entertainment. But mixed in were details that matched mine too cleanly. The dim gate, the lights going down, the suggestion of a quiet corner by the closed food court. I stared at my phone and felt that same static crawl under my skin. I thought about the girl with the stuffed animal and how close she'd been to following a stranger just because he sounded calm. Airports feel safe because they're public and bright and there are cameras, but at 3 a.m. in a blizzard, you're just bodies piled together, half asleep, and everyone's too exhausted to notice the quiet threats right in front of them. He's still out there, I guarantee it. Airports recycle people like that. Customs pulled me because of the bag I didn't pack. I know how that sounds. But that's exactly how it went. Carousel spit out my suitcase with a ripped zipper and a bright orange inspected tape half stuck on. I grabbed it, swore into my breath, and headed for the exit. Officers stepped in front of me, scanned the tag, and sent me right to the little side room with the metal table. No explanation, just that half-apologetic, half-bored look. I tried to slide past him, and he shifted with me like a bouncer. I asked what the issue was, and he didn't even bother with a reason. Secondary. Bake. Over there. Like my name had already been stamped on a form. They took my passport first, then my phone. I argued about the phone because I'm not a monk and I don't like strangers taking my life out of my hand. One guy held his palm out and waited until my pride ran out. The second I let go of it, I felt naked. No GPS, no calls, no hey, I'm okay. Just me and that shitty hum of fluorescent lights. The room smelled like disinfectant and old sweat. Metal table bolted down, 2 chairs, a camera in the corner. They sat me with my knees almost touching the table edge, like they wanted me boxed in. Another officer rolled my suitcase up like it was a bomb and started cutting that orange tape slow, almost careful like theater. He didn't cut it clean either. He sliced into the fabric underneath and didn't give a damn. They unzipped my bag and started pulling my clothes out with gloved hands. Not gently. Shirts tossed. Socks dumped. Toiletries opened. Shoes squeezed. I kept saying, "You're wrecking my stuff. I packed it myself. I know what's in there." Nobody answered like a person. They answered with little sounds and short commands. One of them ran a swab along the zipper teeth, the seams, the handle, my belt buckle after they made me stand up. He fed it into a little machine and stared at the screen like it was a verdict. Right on top, like it had always been there, sat a hard plastic case I'd never seen. Size of a book. No markings, heavy as guilt. My brain did this stupid pause, like it couldn't load the image. I leaned forward, then stopped. The way they all looked at it made my skin crawl. It wasn't, "What is that?" It was, "We found it." Like the ending had already been written. "Open it," the officer said. My mouth went dry. Inside, rows of vacuum-packed white bricks. No labels, no chance in hell they were sugar. I laughed, actual hysterics, told them to check cameras, check the airline, check fucking God. They didn't laugh. They asked when I last seen the bag, who handled it, if anyone asked me to bring something. I told them no. I told them I'm not carrying anybody's shit. I told them I've been in airports my whole life, and I'm not that kind of stupid. The words came out too fast. My hand shook so hard my wrist hurt. One officer kept repeating the same question like a metronome, waiting for me to crack. They took the case away and left my suitcase open like a crime scene. Another guy came in, same uniform, different face, same dead eyes. He asked the same things in a different order, like changing the rhythm would make me trip. Transfer city, connection time, bathroom stops, who I travel with, who touched the bag. He asked if I'd ever worked with anyone who traffics. I told him I'm a normal person with a job and a rent payment and a calendar full of boring shit. He gave me that look that says normal isn't a defense. They moved me to another room for a pat-down. Belt off, shoes off, pockets turned inside out, hands swabbed. They even swabbed my palms like I've been kneading those bricks. I said, "Are you seriously testing my fucking skin right now?" And one officer said, "Calm down," like calm was a switch. A dog came in later. It circled the table, sniffed my suitcase, then sat. That sit felt like a gavel. The younger officer's eyebrows went up like he'd just been handed his answer. Hours passed. My phone died. Nobody cared. They brought me water in a paper cup like I was a patient, not a suspect. I didn't drink it at first because my head started doing paranoid math. What if they want me calm? What if they want my prints on the cup? What if I'm already screwed and I'm just acting out a script? That's what this does to you. You start policing your own hands. I watched the clock and tried to count breaths and kept failing. At one point, they slid a statement across the table for me to sign. The first line said I was found in possession of the case. I told them to change it. I told them I'm not signing my own fucking conviction. The officer sighed like I was annoying him on purpose and said the wording didn't matter. I told him it mattered a lot when you're the one who gets buried. That's when I asked for a lawyer. He He smiled a little and said, "Not charged yet." Like I should be grateful for being held in limbo. Then came the loop. Same questions, same tone, like they were sanding me down. Did anyone ask you to carry something? Did anyone offer you money? Are you sure you packed your own bag? Are you sure you didn't forget? One of them actually said, "People play dumb all the time." And I snapped and told him to stop talking to me like I'm a fucking cartoon criminal. He didn't blink. He just wrote something down, slow, like my anger was proof. After the 10th round, my brain started playing tricks. I started replaying every second of the trip like a security feed. The guy who bumped me at the coffee shop. The gate agent who grabbed the handle to flip the tag. The baggage belt where my suitcase disappeared behind those rubber curtains. I started wondering if somebody at the transfer airport watched me, clocked my tired face, saw my tag, and thought, "Yeah, this one." I hated myself for even letting that thought in, like doubt was contagious. Finally, a supervisor walked in with a printout. No drama, just paperwork. Baggage scan for my transfer city. My suitcase on the belt, no case inside. Next scan, right before my final flight, the case magically appears. In their own system. He tapped the page with a pen, then looked at the officer like, well, the room shifted. Not kindness, just the moment the story stopped fitting their favorite shape. They didn't say sorry. They didn't say wow. One of them just said it was inserted after your transfer. They kept me another hour anyway because they could. More questions, now sharper. Where exactly was I during that layover? Did I leave the gate area? Did I go to a lounge? Did anyone approach me? They wanted a villain they could touch. I told them the only person who approached me was a barista asking if I wanted oat milk. They didn't laugh. Nobody in there ever laughed. They just kept digging for a crack that wasn't there. When they finally handed my passport back, it felt like getting a limb returned. They told me, flat as stone, to stay near my luggage next time. Like I'd left it on a bench and gone shopping. My clothes came back reeking of latex and chemical dust. They'd packed everything sloppy, like they wanted me to feel it every time I opened the bag. The zipper looked even worse, like someone had forced it with anger. I walked out of that airport shaking so hard I couldn't type my address into the rideshare app. I kept expecting a hand on my shoulder, someone telling me it's not over. In the back of the car, I watched every set of headlights like they were tailing me. At home, I dumped the suitcase on the floor and stared at it like it might open itself. I didn't tell my family. I didn't tell my job. I just sat in my shower and tried to scrub the day off, but it didn't go. I'd wake up hearing tape rip in my head, hearing that zipper snag. Weeks later, I got an email from the airline about a baggage tampering investigation. No details. I called and got bounced around until a tired voice suggested I file a claim for the damaged zipper. I lost it. I told them someone used my suitcase to smuggle drugs. I told them I almost got trapped in a system that doesn't care if you're innocent. They went quiet, then hit me with "we can't discuss ongoing investigations," like corporate language could mop up what happened. I hung up and realized I was screaming into a wall. I bought zip ties after that. I wrapped straps around every bag I own. I stood over my suitcase at every airport like a paranoid idiot. It didn't make me feel safe. It made me feel marked, like the world had noticed I'm just a person with a passport and a handle and no real power. For days I swear I could still smell that glove latex on my hands. I kept checking my passport stamp like it would suddenly turn into a charge. Anytime I heard a zipper rasp in public, my stomach dropped. Somebody used my life as a container for a few hours, that's all. If their timing had been slightly different, I'd still be in some cell swearing those bricks weren't mine. I cleaned airports on nights I couldn't sleep. Graveyard shift, echoing terminals, that weird hum from the ceiling. You see things then security never notices, or pretends not to. I didn't take that shift because I loved the quiet. I took it because my head would spin at home and the bills didn't care. The airport looks clean when people are rushing through it with coffee and purpose. At 2 a.m., it looks like a half-lit aquarium. Glass, blinking signs, rows of seats like ribs, and random puddles that never dry because somebody always spills something and just keeps walking. Our crew used to be 3 people per terminal. Then it was 2. Then it was just you tonight. Everybody called out, which was a lie they told so often it sounded true. My supervisor, Carl, sat in a warm office behind security doors and texted orders like he was pushing buttons in a video game. If you complained, he'd hit you with that smug little "do your job" and remind you there were plenty of people who'd take your hours. That night, I mopped near the dark end of a terminal they'd closed for renovations. Shops shuttered, chairs stacked, only emergency strips glowing along the floor. I pushed my cart past the no entry tape because my supervisor said to hit the far bathrooms anyway. I'd argued about it earlier because they'd shut down the cameras there and the lights were half dead. Carl didn't care. He wanted a checkbox ticked. The tape didn't feel like a warning so much as a dare. I ducked under it and the air changed, colder and stale, like the wing had been holding its breath. My cart wheels squealed on the tile and the sound bounced back at me, too loud, too empty. First thing I saw was the suitcase. No tag, no airline barcode, just an old hard shell sitting under a dead flight board. It didn't look like a traveler forgot it. It looked placed, centered, like somebody wanted it seen. I stopped and did the whole responsible employee thing. Radio up, call it in. My radio popped and hissed, then went dead like I dumped it in water. I tried again. Nothing. I pulled my phone and called Carl. He answered annoyed, like I'd interrupted his nap. I told him there was an unattended bag in the closed wing. He sighed and said, "Lost and found could wait till morning. Just hit the bathrooms, quit making problems." I said, "It's a suitcase sitting by itself in a shut-down terminal." And he cut me off with, "Do your job," like that solve explosives, bodies, whatever. He hung up. I muttered, "Fuck you, Carl." I stared at my phone screen until it went dark, then stared back at the suitcase. As I passed, it shifted, not a trick of light. The handle twitched like something grabbed it from the inside. I froze with my hand still on the mop handle. I waited for it to do it again, because your brain always wants to repeat so it can file it as real. It didn't. It just sat there, glossy and scuffed, like it hadn't moved at all. I told myself it was pressure, a draft, whatever. Airports have weird airflow. Doors open, vents kick, things settle. Fine, but my stomach didn't buy it. My stomach started listing exits. Then a voice came from the dark row of seats. "You working alone tonight?" Male too close, but I saw nobody. My throat went dry. I swung my flashlight across the seats, expecting a homeless guy or a drunk who wandered off from a gate. Empty, just fabric and shadow and a wrapper stuck to one armrest. My radio crackled dead again. That open channel hiss that makes you feel like somebody is listening on the other end and not saying a word. Out of the corner of my eye, a figure sat 3 seats down, gray hoodie, head bent. I snapped my light onto it, and my heart kicked like it wanted out. I blinked, and the seat was empty. Not he stood up. Empty like he'd been a smear on my vision. I swore aloud because I needed to hear my own voice. I remember thinking, what the fuck, and hating how small it sounded. The sound came back to me thin and wrong. I looked down at the suitcase again. It wasn't where it had been. It was still under the board, but turned a few degrees, pointing at the staff door like a finger. My gut screamed to leave it. Instead, I did my job. And yeah, that's the part that makes me sound stupid. But you get trained into it. Ignore your instincts, obey the schedule, don't make trouble. I rolled it toward the office, wheels squeaking louder than they should. Every squeak echoed like a scream. The suitcase felt heavier than it should have. Not packed for a trip heavy. Dead weight heavy, like it had one solid thing inside that didn't shift. It kept thumping against the cart frame with a slow, dumb rhythm, and every time it did, I expected a thump back from within. Halfway there, the ceiling above me clicked, then a soft scrape, like someone sliding a shoe along metal. I stopped moving, and the scrape stopped too. I started again, and it started again. My chest tightened like my ribs were trying to hold me in place. I tried calling Carl again, straight to voicemail. I left a message full of angry whispering, told him his far bathrooms could rot. Halfway there, a security guy stepped out from a side hall and grabbed the handle from me. No vest, no badge clipped where I could see, just said, "I'll take that," and yanked hard. I jerked back and my cart rocked. I asked for his ID. My voice came out higher than I wanted. He didn't answer. He stared at me like I was a stain on the floor. His fingers were too pale, like he'd been in a fridge. The skin looked tight over the knuckles, and his nails had that gray edge like old paper. There was a smell on him too, sour and damp, like a basement that never sees sun. I should have held on. I should have hit the panic button. "We have one," clipped inside the janitor closet. I didn't, because my brain did that stupid thing where it assumes authority is real even when it isn't. Dark clothes, confident hands, therefore security, therefore safe. So I let go. He rolled it into a staff-only elevator I'd never seen used at night. Doors closed without a ding. The elevator didn't show a floor number. It just swallowed him and that suitcase and left me standing there with a mop bucket like an extra in my own life. After the doors slid shut, the wing felt even emptier, like whatever had been watching got what it wanted. My radio came back to life for 1 second with a burst of static so loud it hurt, then died again. I backed my cart up, slow, eyes on every row of seats, every gap between barriers. I kept expecting that gray hoodie to appear again, closer this time, but all I got was the hum and the cold. I ducked back under the entry tape and didn't stop until I hit the bright main terminal where a couple of stranded passengers slept under their coats. I pretended to work. I wiped the same counter 3 times. My hand shook so bad I sloshed dirty water onto the tile and had to mop my own mess. Near the end of the shift, Ops finally answered on the radio like nothing happened. I asked if a security officer had retrieved an unattended suitcase in the closed wing. The voice paused and asked which wing, like I was making it up. Then it told me to stand by and went silent. Carl never came out to look. When he finally did show up at dawn, he pulled me into the break area and started in on me about unfinished bathrooms. I told him about the suitcase and the guard in the elevator. I watched his face change in little steps, annoyed, then wary, then pissed in a different way, like I'd wandered into something he didn't want on record. He told me to stop talking about it, clock out, and go home. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "Good job calling it in." Just damage control. I tried to pull up the incident log myself. We've got a dusty computer in the supply room that shows work orders and security notes if you know where to click. There was nothing. No unattended bag, no officer dispatched, no elevator access, like the whole thing got vacuumed out. When I asked one of the day security guys if he'd been in that wing overnight, he laughed and said nobody goes in there. It's sealed and a story. Then he looked at Carl, and Carl looked back, and I felt that silent little message. Drop it or lose your badge. I walked down the corridor one last time before I clocked out, just to prove to myself I wasn't crazy, and the door to that staff elevator was shut and painted the same color as the wall, like it had always been part of the wall. No sound, no panel, just flat paint and a faint smell of fresh primer. Next morning, that whole wing was roped off. Rumor in the break room said they'd found someone living in the crawl spaces, tracking flights, watching overnight passengers sleep, stealing IDs, tickets, clothes. They never mentioned a suitcase, or a guard, or why the cameras in that section glitched for hours. I switched to days. At least in daylight, you can see what's watching you.